Every second, someone in the world clicks purchase on a product they'll never hold in their hands. They're not buying drugs or weapons. They're buying themselves. A new name, a new birthday, a new life. How much does it cost to become someone else? The underground identity market is a global network where people buy and sell complete identity packages. Birth certificates, social security numbers, driver's licenses, passports, bank accounts, and credit histories. Everything needed to exist as a legal person in modern society. This isn't new, but it's never been bigger. Law enforcement agencies across North America, Europe, and Asia report that the trade in fake and stolen identities has grown by over 300% since 2019. The explosion happened when COVID lockdowns pushed criminal networks fully online and encrypted messaging became mainstream. The modern identity trade began long before the internet, in the forger studios of Cold War Europe. In the 1970s and 80s, intelligence agencies and criminal organizations employed artists who could reproduce government documents by hand. Each passport took days to create. Each document was a work of careful craft. Everything changed in the early 2000s when desktop publishing met high-resolution scanners. Suddenly, a skilled forger could produce 100 documents in the time it once took to make one. Online marketplaces on the early dark web created global distribution channels. The first major dark web marketplace, Silk Road, launched in 2011 primarily for drugs. But vendors quickly realized that identity documents had better profit margins and lower shipping risks. By 2015, specialized identity marketplaces had emerged. Sites with names like Fake ID King and Document Haven operated openly on encrypted networks. They featured customer reviews, money-back guarantees, and customer service chatbots. They looked like Amazon. They functioned like Amazon. They just sold illegal documents instead of books. The COVID-19 pandemic created the perfect storm for this industry. Millions of people lost jobs and grew desperate. Government services moved online, making digital verification both more important and easier to fake. Stimulus payments created new opportunities for fraud. Between March 2020 and December 2021, reported cases of identity fraud in the United States alone jumped from 650,000 to over 1.4 million. But who are the buyers? The customers aren't who you might expect. Law enforcement data suggests that roughly 40% of buyers are undocumented immigrants seeking work authorization. About 25% are people fleeing domestic violence, debt, or legal troubles. Another 20% are career criminals who need clean identities for fraud schemes. The remaining 15% include everyone from teenagers trying to buy alcohol to individuals escaping authoritarian regimes. In 2022, a joint operation between the FBI, Europol, and agencies from 12 countries infiltrated and dismantled a marketplace called Eurovault. Agents seized over 40,000 fraudulent documents ready for shipment and arrested 157 people across 4 continents. The investigation revealed the supply chain in detail. Forgers in Eastern Europe produced the physical documents using commercial-grade printers and hologram overlays purchased legally from security printing suppliers. Payment processors in Southeast Asia handled cryptocurrency conversions. Reshippers in North America received bulk packages and mailed individual documents to customers, never knowing what they were shipping. According to court documents, a complete U.S. identity package cost between $2,000 and $5,000. This included a social security card, birth certificate, state driver's license, and instructions for establishing credit history. Premium packages for $8,000 to $15,000 included real but stolen social security numbers that wouldn't immediately flag in verification systems. The quality varied dramatically. Investigators found that about 60% of seized documents would fool an untrained eye but fail enhanced verification. Another 30% were sophisticated enough to pass basic institutional checks like rental applications or job verification. Only about 10% were premium-grade documents that could potentially survive border control scrutiny, though even these had detectable flaws under forensic examination. One seized chat log revealed the customer service philosophy. "We guarantee it works for what you need," a vendor wrote to a customer, "but we cannot guarantee it works for everything. Know your use case." The conversation continued with advice on where and how to use the fake ID to minimize detection risk. Blockchain analysis traced payments back through multiple cryptocurrency tumblers. Investigators estimated the Eurovault operation alone processed over $40 million in transactions across its 3-year existence. The alleged head administrator, who went by the username Architect, has not been identified and is believed to still be operating. Law enforcement frames this as pure criminality that enables everything from tax evasion to terrorism financing. Civil liberties advocates argue that the existence of this market reflects failures in legal immigration pathways and protection systems for abuse survivors. Some security researchers suggest that published enforcement statistics may overcount the problem. They point out that the same fake document might be reported as multiple incidents as it passes through different systems. Others counter that the problem is vastly undercounted because most fake identity use never triggers investigation. There's also dispute about who bears responsibility. Document security experts note that government-issued IDs in many countries use outdated security features that are easy to replicate. They argue that governments have failed to adopt available anti-counterfeiting technology. Government officials respond that no security feature is unbeatable, and that the real problem is enforcement resources and international cooperation. The data on buyer motivation remains incomplete. Most of what law enforcement knows comes from arrested buyers who may not represent the broader customer base. People who successfully use fake identities without getting caught don't appear in the statistics. Behind every number in the enforcement reports is a person whose real identity was stolen or a person desperate enough to buy a fake one. Maria, whose real name has been changed for her protection, discovered someone was using her social security number when she tried to file her taxes and was told she'd already filed. According to her account given to a victims advocacy group, it took her 11 months and over $3,000 in fees to prove she was herself. She lost a job offer because the background check showed employment history at places she'd never worked. On the other side, advocates describe people who turn to fake documents out of what they see as survival necessity. A 2023 report documented cases of domestic violence survivors who legally changed their names but found that not enough to escape abusive ex-partners who had resources to track legal name changes. Some obtained fraudulent identity documents as a last resort for physical safety. The impact extends to institutions and communities. Small businesses that unknowingly hire workers with fake credentials can face penalties and loss of their own licenses. Communities with high rates of undocumented residents report that the prevalence of fake IDs makes everyone more vulnerable to fraud and undermines trust in documents generally. Think of legal identity like a key that unlocks everything in modern society. Without ID, you can't get a job, rent a home, open a bank account, receive mail, access healthcare, or even get a library card. When someone creates a fake identity, they're not just breaking a law. They're creating a ghost in the system. That ghost can get credit cards, file tax returns, and commit crimes. But all of those actions get tied to someone else's real identity or to a fictional person whose digital trail confuses everything it touches. Dr. Marcus Webb, who studies identity systems at MIT, explains it this way: modern society runs on trust in documents. Every transaction assumes the person is who their ID says they are. When that assumption breaks down, the cost of verification goes up for everyone. The underground identity market reveals a deeper problem. Millions of people globally exist in a gap between law and reality. They're physically present in countries where they can't legally work or access services. Some fled persecution. Some overstayed visas. Some were born to undocumented parents and inherited their status. Legal identity systems weren't designed for this scale of human movement in the 21st century. The same technology that makes fake IDs easier to create also makes them easier to detect. Biometric databases, AI-powered document verification, and blockchain-based identity systems are all being deployed. But these tools raise their own concerns about privacy, surveillance, and the potential for authoritarian control. The question isn't just how to stop fake IDs. It's how to build identity systems that are both secure and humane. So what happens next? We know that a sophisticated global market exists where people can buy new identities for prices ranging from a few hundred to tens of thousands of dollars. We know that millions of fraudulent documents circulate and that both organized criminal groups and desperate individuals participate. What we don't know is the true scale, the identity of most major operators, or the full downstream impact of millions of ghost identities in government databases. The next chapter is already being written by both sides of this underground war. In the near term, expect more sophisticated documents but also more sophisticated detection. Law enforcement agencies are implementing AI systems that can spot subtle printing inconsistencies invisible to the human eye. These systems are already in pilot programs at major airports. Several countries are moving toward fully digital identity systems using blockchain and biometrics. Estonia's e-residency program and India's Aadhaar system are models being studied globally. The technology works, but political and privacy concerns slow adoption. There will likely be a continued cat-and-mouse game. Each security improvement triggers innovation in forgery techniques. Already, researchers have demonstrated that AI-generated synthetic identities can defeat some verification systems by creating realistic but entirely fictional people. The techniques are published and reproducible. Legal reform is possible but uncertain. Some advocates push for expanded pathways to legal status that would reduce the market for fake documents. Others call for harsher penalties for both vendors and buyers. Major legislative change in the near term seems unlikely due to political polarization. The market itself will likely fragment and adapt. When major marketplaces get taken down, smaller ones pop up. Communication moves to harder-to-infiltrate platforms. Payment systems evolve. The fundamental demand that drives this market isn't going away. The underground identity market exists because millions of people need to become someone else, for reasons both criminal and desperate, and because our systems of identity haven't caught up with how humans actually move through the modern world. If you want to understand another hidden market that shapes our world, watch our documentary on the dark web drug trade that outgrew the streets. It explores similar themes of technology, anonymity, and the gaps between law and reality. This documentary is based on public court records, law enforcement reports, academic research, and investigative journalism published between 2020 and 2024. Names of victims and some details have been changed to protect privacy. The identity fraud landscape evolves rapidly, and some specifics may have changed since publication. This is intended as educational journalism, not legal or security advice. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.